Hey everybody, and welcome to this month's episode of Real Talk, the monthly conversation where Chris and I talk to one of our previous guests or listeners and let them tell their story. If you hear a little weirdness in my voice, it's because I just tried to intro this multiple times. Once I was too nervous to even get going, and the other time I definitely called this the first episode, so I'm on a roll. I'm doing really well. So you will notice when you're listening to this, Chris is not here. He had a bit of a hard day today, so he is not going to be present for this one. So it's just one-on-one conversation this month. So this time, we have listener Cheyenne with us, and we're going to chat a little bit about her struggles with mental health and just kind of let her tell her story. So thanks for coming on the show, Tarzan? I almost called you Tarzan. Cheyenne,
that is my
how
name.
are you?
Thank you for finally getting it right.
I'm sorry.
What's wrong with you?
It's so many things.
All right, well, it's fine.
Okay.
I'll forgive you this one.
Cool. I'm really glad. But thank you for coming on.
But only call me Tarzan from now on.
I'll change your name in my phone to that.
All right. I'll forget about this, though, and you'll call me Tarzan, and I'll be very confused.
That's okay. I mean, that sort of stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
So, want to say thanks for coming on. For anyone out there in listener land who's like, what is this Real Talk? What is this? This doesn't sound like, is this adulting? Even though so far it kind of does. This is kind of how these episodes work. So on the first Monday of every month, that's today. Whoa, hey, unless you're listening in the future, in which case it's, I don't know when this is. I mean, right now when this is releasing, it's April 2nd of 2018. But I don't know when you are or where you are. But they come out on the first Monday of every month. And you get one of these episodes in addition to the regular episode on Thursday. So don't worry, that's not going anywhere. And what we do is we just sit down for folks for a little more of a serious, in-depth conversation about their individual experiences with mental health or mental illness. And then we take that conversation, we continue it over on Patreon as an exclusive episodes for those who donate at the $5 level or more. Now, I'm just going to say that doesn't mean this is a paywall. You're going to get the whole story here, the whole conversation here, and then we'll kind of reflect on it and tell anecdotes or whatever over on the show. Like, I think for this one, we'll probably tell the story of how Cheyenne and I met because it's interesting, and we have only met in person one time.
Yeah.
And we're like friends, like legit friends. It's weird. So I like meeting people. So we'll probably talk about that, but you're going to get the whole story here. So if you don't support us on Patreon, don't worry. You're still getting all the content. So with that said, we're going to just dive right in. So Cheyenne, where's this all start for you?
Oh God. Okay. So I thought about a lot about what I wanted to say. Actually, first, no, I have to do my disclaimer about my janky setup.
Okay.
Real quick. Yeah, no, I just wanted to warn anyone if my audio is not stellar. I'm in the process of starting a podcast, but I've never actually recorded. This is one of my first times recording, actually. So if it sounds bad, be gentle with me. Let me know what I can fix, and I will fix it for the future. And yeah, trigger warnings, because I have thought a lot about what I wanted to say during this. Divorce, suicide attempt. Those are the big two. There's going to be other stuff, anxiety, depression. That's all I can think of right now, but it's going to come to me. I've just had the weirdest day. So
No worries. Thanks for doing that.
No. So this starts probably, I guess, I went to App State.
Go Mountaineers.
Woo! Big fun. And I met my first boyfriend freshman year in my dorm, and he and I fell in love very quickly, college sweethearts. It was very nice. But yeah, so we stayed together all through college, and then after our senior year we got married. And I know when you and I met, I have a boyfriend, so clearly that did not work out.
Right.
And I'm so young that a lot of people are shocked when they find out that I'm divorced, because I'm only 26, and I actually got divorced when I was 24. I got married when I was 22. Wow. So so it was sort of like because I met him when I was 18, we were married by 22, and then, I don't know, a couple of years into it, I just realized that it wasn't good for either of us. We liked each other, but we were like brother and sister. It was
Mm,
not a romantic relationship.
mm,
And we didn't have children, and I didn't want to keep, I just sort of realized that like we couldn't keep going further. And it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do because he was my very best friend because we did have that platonic relationship. And I realized that I had to break apart our marriage, and he was a product of divorce. My parents had been divorced, but they were still together. They had been divorced previously.
right.
So, I don't know. It was a really tough situation because he and I had just bought our first house together, so we did have like a mortgage tying us, and we had only been married for 2 years, so part of me was really worried that I didn't give it my best shot. And my best friend from college was living with us, and she and I actually fell out over this, and she ended up going his way, I guess, or at least she didn't go my way.
Mm,
So, and I don't choose to get into that story because it hurt me deeply. Like, that broke my heart more than my divorce from my husband did.
right.
And I don't wish her any harm. I don't wish him any harm. It was a very amicable break, but it was just a very tough break. And within the past month, honestly, I feel like I've been waking up from that fog. So I just sort of wanted to talk about that a little bit because I feel like a lot of women and men, but more women, get into relationships like that and they feel stuck. And I think it's important for people to know that they're not stuck in relationships, whether it be romantic or platonic or professional. You're never stuck. And all you have to do is make a decision. And I know that it's not always as simple, not always that black and white, cut and dry, but it does, there is an option. You're not stuck.
Right. Gosh, that's tough.
Yeah,
That's real tough stuff.
it was.
I'm sorry to hear that, especially about you and your friend.
No, and I mean, it's all fine now, but it took a long time to get over. It took me, and I'm never going to be over it. I'm not that kind of person. I will just randomly think of my ex and I'll start feeling guilty all over again.
Right.
And it's a tough situation because I can't say I'm sorry anymore because I have a wonderful life that I'm happy in. I have Justin, who you've met,
Mm-hmm.
and we have our dog Teddy and our cat Nico, and we're building a life together and we're really happy. So I can't say that I'm sorry anymore. I'm sad that he got hurt.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't need to feel sorry anymore, you know?
I know, but I'm the type of person, I'm an empath. I suck up emotions. I'm a sponge. You know that. You met me.
Mm-hmm.
You saw it in action because we are literally the same human
We
being.
are.
It's crazy. And Justin and Katie are also like the same human beings.
Right.
So
It is eerie how similar our
it's
significant others
uncanny.
are, as well as how eerily similar we are.
Yes. And so no, but I'm an empath, and I had to be the bad guy in that situation. If you have to assign blame, I was the one to blame there. I was the one who left. I was the one who made that decision. So at the end of the day, I was the bad guy. And I can get into that, but that's a whole nother topic. And so it's just it just sucked. And so I just feel guilty, and I can't help but feeling guilty. So I also just want people to know that that's normal, but like you said, you don't have to feel that way.
Right. And I mean, while you kind of view yourself in that situation or from the outside looking in as quote unquote the bad guy, I mean, you have to do what's best for you and for
Yeah,
your happiness and for your
exactly.
self-care. And so,
And
yeah, I mean, if you're in a
yeah.
relationship and you know that it's not something that you want to be a part of or that
Hmm.
you need to be a part of, I mean, that's not fair to you or to the other person to stay in it.
Yeah. Hmm. No, and I knew that he wanted kids, and I wasn't sure if I wanted kids, but B, if I ever had a child with him, I never would have left. So I needed to exit before it was something like that, where it wasn't just his life and my life, where in the end we'll be better for it.
Right. No, that makes sense.
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of times those sort of situations
Hmm.
and things traumatic that can happen will trigger or bring to the surface other things that you may not know that you're
Hmm.
dealing with, or they can even be the catalyst that kind of starts things. So after
Hmm.
all that happened, where did you go from there?
Oh my God. So I did a very me thing, and
Okay.
I literally ran away. I packed my shit up and I moved to Pennsylvania. I moved,
Wow.
well, for the first little bit, I moved in with my parents, but I think I was living with them for a month, and I applied to jobs. If I knew a person in a town in a different state, I was applying for a job there.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I had a friend up in Pennsylvania, and I moved up there. Um, I didn't make it for, I think I lasted like 8 months
Mm.
up there though. And then I was moving back home because I was just miserable. I was in a bad relationship. It was toxic and abusive,
Mm.
and my mental health was just deteriorating. I hadn't given myself any time to grieve over my marriage. And so I was just in a like a black hole is what it felt like.
Right.
And so I came back home. Like I called my parents. I was working for an employer who was less than stellar. Very misogynistic, very cult-like atmosphere.
Mm.
And I don't want to go too deep into it because the guy's like a gajillionaire who sues everyone.
Right. Yeah. Best not to
Yeah.
be sued.
Yes, best not to be sued. I had a panic attack on the Friday before the 4th of July because I was in this toxic relationship. I was in a toxic work relationship, and I was, still fresh out of my divorce.
Right.
And so I went into work, though. I got dressed. I went into work. I was there on time, and I was sitting at my desk and I was sniffling a little bit because I had been crying before I came in. And my supervisor turned to me and said something along the lines of like, "Oh, do you have a cold?" And I was honest because I'm always honest about my mental health.
Right.
I don't ever cover it up. So I just looked at her and I said, "No, I had a panic attack this morning and it was really hard." And she was like, "Oh, I know how that goes. Why don't you go home, work from home, snuggle with your dog, and just come back in on Tuesday because we had Monday off for 4th of July."
Okay.
And so I go back in Tuesday and she looks at me. Well, she doesn't come in until like 11, but then she sits down and she says, "Hey, can we go into the conference room?" And this has never happened before, so I know what's coming.
Right.
And she just tells me that they don't want to put too much pressure on me, and they want to help me ease into my new life, quote unquote. And so they wanted to demote me to part-time, cut my pay, cut my hours, but not let me work for anyone else because I had signed a non-compete when I first joined. And
Oh.
again, this guy sues everyone, and he does it to be spiteful. He does not do it to be just, he does it to be cruel.
Right.
And so finally, I look at her and I say no because I don't need that. I don't need their pity. I don't need them to not take my mental health seriously because I did the damn thing. I had a panic attack, but I still got dressed and I still went to work.
Right.
And she didn't have to ask me about why I was sniffling. I wasn't sniffling that much. So, if they were looking for an excuse to let me go, they found it. So I called my parents, and a month later, they were driving back up to Pennsylvania and moving me back home. Boyfriend was supposed to come with me, but as I said, we were toxic and horrible for each other. And so he decided that he wouldn't, and that was heartbreaking. But then I came home and I carried on.
And I mean, that's all you can do in a situation like that.
Yeah.
And I
And
feel like all too often people with mental illness hear that excuse at jobs
yeah.
of, oh, well, we don't want to put too much on you.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what this is about. Like, you're
Yeah, it's
uncomfortable because of who I am, and,
exactly.
it's frustrating.
And yeah, no, it was extremely frustrating. And so I was happy when it was over. And, it wasn't as simple as, I just carried on. It was heartbreaking and I was having panic attack after panic attack. And there's nothing fun about it.
So, what kind of happened once you got home? How did you adapt to being back home?
Okay, well, I did what I also always do because I'm a very pattern of behavior person. Like, I I just started therapy, and last week I was sitting in my therapist's office, and at the end of the session I told him, I was like, well, if I hadn't come today I would never come back. And then I was just like, pattern of behavior. And so that's how you sing in front of your therapist.
I do it all the time in weird ways.
I had never done it before though, so that was our like real kick in for that. So I'm excited that that finally happened. But no, I have very little patience for not being in a relationship, and that's not a good thing. I admit that that's not a good thing. Um, when you break up, it's not usually healthy to jump back into relationships. But what do? I do that because it makes me feel better,
Right.
and that's how I met Justin because I went home and I texted my best friend and I was like, how do I date? Like, how do you meet people? Because like none of my friends from high school still lived at home. I didn't have any college friends in the area.
Mm-hmm.
The only person I really knew was my ex-best friend and my ex-husband. So I knew that I had to at least meet people, even if it was just casual dating, just to get out of the house.
Right.
Yeah. And so she was like, download Tinder. And I was like, okay, great. This is gonna suck, or maybe it'll be great. Who knows? So I joined Tinder and I talked to a few guys, didn't meet anyone, and then Justin messaged me, and I had worked in the call center at App State with two of his roommates from college.
Oh, wow.
And so we had that connection, and he just messaged me and was like, hey, I see you know two of my favorite people. And that was the first refreshing, not asking for nudes or sending me their dick pic that I had gotten.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started talking to him. I didn't want to meet him. I didn't want to go out. I was just like, oh, this is horrible. I am not interested in dating. I didn't want to date. I was like, I didn't want to seriously date. I wanted to have casual fun and like figure myself out. That was my big plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then Justin just like waltzes in and screws it all up. Because I'm not kidding you, Steven. It was like my heart was broken. I was unemployed. I was miserable. And I was living with my parents again. And I just felt like a failure. And it sucked so hard. And then I joined Tinder and I meet Justin, who I seriously consider to be my perfect match. 2 weeks after I move home. 2 weeks. And I was just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to meet him. And finally, I was like having a panic attack and my dad was like, get in the truck, you're going to work with me. And I was like, okay. And so he does real estate photography, or he did that primarily then.
Mm-hmm.
And he took me to a house and made me stage it. And I'm like crying and I'm like having one of the worst panic attacks of my life because I was like, I want to go back to Pennsylvania. I miss my ex-boyfriend, which now I'm like, Cheyenne, don't do that. Don't be that person.
Right.
And so I was being a brat. I was being insufferable. So I'm glad my dad like stepped in. And I told him that Justin wanted to meet me that Friday for drinks, but I was like, I don't think I'm going to do it. And he was like, do it. Like, go, you have to do it. You have to be out of my house at that time. Like, what's not to like? This guy went to Central. He's an attorney. He just passed the bar. You know his friends. You know you like his friends. Like, just go meet him. And I was just like, ugh, fine. So, Kevin Smith, wingman of the century.
Wait, your dad's name is Kevin Smith?
Yes.
That's amazing.
My father's name. Where do you think my humor comes from? Yes. So no, he wingmaned me hard and basically made me go on a date that I didn't want to go on. And, a year and a half later, I'm living with the guy and I'm super happy. So
that's awesome.
And Like all of my mental, like I hate to say it because I wish it could have been me, because I want to be that person that's like, I climbed the mountain, I did the thing, but I didn't climb the mountain. Justin pushed me up the mountain. Like he saw me and he was able to love me at my worst. He fell in love with me when I was mentally at my worst. I don't know how he did it. I don't know what I did, but he decided somewhere in his brain that he loved me, and he got drunk at a wedding and then texted me in the middle of the night that he was in love with me. And I was just like, full stop, sir. We have been together. Like we had officially been dating for like 2 weeks. So we've known each other for like a month and a half at this point.
Right.
And I'm like, nope, you do not love me. You are not allowed to love me. I refuse, because I was like, this is not going to be a serious relationship, which she's a liar, everyone. She is not a reliable narrator in her own story. And so, yeah, no, he did that, and we like fought over that, and I was so mean and just, and he was still just like, okay, but I love you. Like, all right, you're stuck with me. I'm a cute boy.
That's all right. I've wondered how my wife has put up with me. After my breakdown, I'm always like, this is not the person you fell in love with.
And her being her, I'm sure she's just like him, and it's just like, but I do love you.
Right. She's like, none of us,
Yeah.
I'm not the same person I was when I was 21 when we met. She was like, I'm
Yeah,
not,
exactly.
everything's different now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can relate to that on a spiritual level.
Oh, imagine.
I know, right? It's like we have something in common.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as illness goes, I know you've mentioned panic attacks and stuff like that. Do you have any, I know you're in therapy and stuff. Do you have any diagnoses, or do you want to talk about that?
I'm diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and clinical depression. I have self-diagnosed myself quite a bit, really only with PMDD, and which is oh God, she's gonna say PMDD and then forget exactly what it means. Premenstrual dysphoric disorder.
Okay.
Nailed it. Which is basically like when you're PMSing, think PMS, but then think like you have suicidal thoughts and you want to claw your own skin off and you want to run away and hide and you wish you had never been born, because that's literally what it feels like when I get my period. And it sucks and I feel horrible and like, just noises. That's all it can be. And like my last therapy session, I was PMSing, so that's what was going on. And I just told my therapist, I was like, I didn't want to come today, and also all I really want to do is make noises. Like that's the only way I can express myself. And he was like, okay, that's fine, which was great of him, because the dude was going to just listen to me make weird sounds for an hour, but I decided to talk.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how it works a lot of times. I feel like I go in and I'm like, I don't have anything to say. And an hour later, I've talked my therapist's ear off.
Yes. And, but no, so that's a rough one. But then the one that actually led me to going to therapy was borderline personality disorder. And that's why I'm in therapy, was because I at first did not think it was just me. I didn't think that was the case. I thought I was just crazy. And I thought that all of my anger and everything was just my craziness, and that maybe I really was just a bitch. Like, maybe that was just an option. I didn't know why I wanted to be a bitch, but I was just angry and, like, hostile and irritable and grumpy all the time. And so that's why I started into therapy, because Justin and I, it was around the holidays, and I don't know, we were arguing and it was over nothing. And I just remembered thinking during the fight, I was like, I don't want to be having this fight. I don't want to be going through this.
Right.
And just realizing that, like, I was so angry for no reason. So I was just like, let me, like, Google this. And BPD was one of the options, but I was like, no, that's not me. Like, I don't fit into that cookie cutter. But then I actually did what I consider to be the smart thing to do. Maybe not other people, but I peeled back the layers on it and realized, like, oh no, when you actually look past, like, the Google definition of the diagnosis, you can realize there are variations in mental illness and not everyone is a cookie cutter, but, you know.
Right.
So when I realized that it could be borderline personality disorder, which I funnily enough discovered by listening to the Pete Davidson episode of WTF with Mark Maron. Yes. I had never heard of it before, but I listened to that podcast episode at work one day, and so that sort of familiarized me with it. And then it was like a week later, I was having this argument and sort of thinking about it. And so I thought about it a lot, and I realized I can't make that call on my own, and that's why I'm in therapy now. And my therapist and I are sort of working through to see if that is correct or not.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's probably stressful.
I mean, it is, but actually it's not. Um, it's stressful to not know why you feel out of control.
Right.
It's stressful to not know why it was stressful to not know why I was angry at everyone all the time. Why I didn't want to be around people when I love people, and why I was just content to not like interact, or why I was ready to just lash out over the smallest thing.
Right.
You know, not knowing why that's happening to me, that was stressful. Having an idea of where it could be coming from and knowing there are ways to work towards a solution makes me feel better.
That's fair. And I know for me, like having the knowledge of what's going on in my brain has actually been better, because I know, like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I'm not just quote unquote crazy.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
a reason behind this, and I'm not losing my mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
It's yeah, it's validating.
Yes, it makes you feel a little more in control in some ways, but out of control in other ways. It's interesting.
It is.
But what's your experience with depression? Because I know you mentioned depression being one of the major things that you had a diagnosis with.
Um, Depression, I mean, when it happens, like, because to me, depression, like, I'm high functioning with my anxiety and my depression, so I'm really lucky in that regard because I most days can get out of bed. It's never like, oh, am I gonna make it to work? So I'm never worried about my job, which, you know, is the vicious cycle. So then you're, you know, all of
Right.
that, which we don't have to get into that. Um, but when the depression hits, it's bad. I'm low. It sucks. But my big thing is anxiety. Like my life is just fueled by my anxiety.
Okay. I can,
Yeah.
yeah, I resonate. For me, I don't know about you, it goes back and forth a lot.
Yeah.
It's like a waxing and waning of what is more difficult to deal with at that moment in time.
Yeah.
But typically, for me as well, it's anxiety. I know at the top of the show, you mentioned a trigger warning for suicide discussion. Is that
Oh,
something you wanted to get into?
yes. Oh, yeah. No, sorry.
No,
Wow. Casually forgets about that.
you're fine. This is your time to tell your story.
Yeah, I'm obviously a great storyteller.
So good.
So good. Okay, so when I was in college, sophomore year, I was having a really, really rough time. Like, my roommate and I didn't get along. I was homesick all the time. It was just horrible. And I think there were just a lot of undiagnosed things because I had actually tried to go to the mental health clinic at App on campus, but they effectively told me, and I don't feel bad saying this because you shouldn't say this to someone with mental illness, but they basically told me that I was too messed up, that they weren't qualified to help someone with issues like mine.
That's not good.
But I was a broke college student. I didn't have money to see a doctor, and there aren't a ton of mental health resources in Boone.
Right.
So I didn't, you know, my health insurance was the student health insurance because my parents didn't have health insurance. And so I was just in this lurch of feeling like I was uncared for and feeling like no one wanted me around and feeling like no matter how hard I tried to ask for help, no one was going to help me because that's the frustrating thing about healthcare. So, like, political trigger warning, but whoo, um, like, it's complete and utter bullshit that you have to pick between paying your light bill and seeing a doctor.
Right.
Like, it's complete crap to me. And mental illness, has effectively been ignored in this country for a while, and it's getting better. I can give it that because there are people like us who are talking about it.
Right.
But it's still not announced. People still don't, you're not shouting like, ooh, depression, let's talk about it, because it's an ugly thing you want to ignore and sweep under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it felt like. It felt like I was being swept under the rug. It felt like I was just being let fall through a crack. So I just didn't care anymore. And I locked myself in my dorm room one night and I swallowed an entire bottle of pills. And my boyfriend, or, my then boyfriend, got in and called the ambulance. And I had to sit in an ER in Boone overnight, drinking the charcoal stuff and throwing it up, and it was terrible. They give you cherry flavored charcoal to cleanse your liver and sweep out your system, and doesn't taste like anything but charcoal. So I appreciate their efforts. However, they missed the mark.
Yeah.
Just, don't hand me a bag of charcoal and tell me it's cherry flavored charcoal.
Right.
Just, yeah. And so, yeah, and after that, I went to the 2 mandatory sessions that I had to have with the hospital psychiatrist. I told them that, of course, I was fine. I knew what I was doing. If I had wanted to die, I wouldn't have blah, blah, blah. And basically, they let me manipulate my way out of having to pay because I didn't have any money. So I wanted to manipulate my way out of having to see anyone after I was required, because these were mandatory visits, but I was still having to shell out the $80 for them. So, okay, that's fair, but also, I don't have any money. So, and they told me, oh, yes, you have clinical depression and generalized anxiety disorder. And I went on an antidepressant for a couple of years, and then I took myself off of it and thought I was better, and here I am now, medicated.
But there's nothing wrong with being medicated.
Not at all.
If it weren't for medication, I know so many of us, but specifically I can speak to myself. If it weren't for medication, I don't think I'd be able to handle at all.
No, when I say Justin pushed me up the mountain, I mean Justin pushed me to a doctor's office and got me on Zoloft.
Absolutely. I was
yes,
gonna say, it takes that sometimes. I mean, my wife finally shoved me out the door and sent me on my way to my psychologist. So,
oh yeah, no, he did that too. He was like, you have to go to therapy. If you think you have BPD, you have to see a therapist. We will make it work.
It's nice to have those people, isn't it?
It is nice to have those people.
And sometimes, I know a lot of folks don't necessarily have that voice in their lives. Just telling them hey, you need to take care of yourself.
I mean, if anyone needs me to be that voice, I will constantly be that voice for you. I am an amazing cheerleader.
I can vouch that you are indeed an amazing cheerleader.
It's very true. I'm very good at convincing people to, take care of themselves, because if they don't do it, I will do it for them.
That's good. Maybe I need to call you more because I don't always do it. So
that's whenever anyone asks me for advice, I'm like, what do you want to do? And they tell me, I'm like, do that. And they're like, but what if that's a bad idea? And I'm like, but do you think it's a bad idea? No? Well, then do it. If it's a bad idea, okay, fine. Bad ideas happen.
Did I tell you this exact same thing when you told me you were thinking about starting a podcast?
Probably, yes, because we're the same human.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds really familiar to a pep talk I remember giving you.
Yes. Because we're amazing cheerleaders.
Sometimes you got to be. But... Well, I appreciate you sharing all of that. I know that that's not always easy to talk about, even when you're open book, which I consider myself to be in you. Sometimes it's still not the best thing to rehash.
But it's important to rehash.
Exactly. I mean, these conversations, I've said on the last 2 episodes, but yeah, these conversations in an effort to break stigma go a long way.
They really, truly do.
Because it lets people know, hey, you're not alone.
You're not alone.
Right. And we, as always, want to remind listeners of these episodes that if you're in need of help coping with mental illness or you need to seek mental health treatment, you're not alone in that either. Please reach out to a mental health professional, or if you're in crisis, please contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. It's 1-800-273-TALK. And you don't have to be, as I've said on multiple episodes, you don't have to be suicidal to call that number.
No, you don't.
If you just need a friend, if you just need somebody to talk to, they will talk to you.
They will.
And they'll just chat. They're lovely folks. So some of us have used them before when we can't afford therapy.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we're going to continue this conversation as an exclusive episode for our supporters on Patreon at the $5 level or more. We'll probably, like I said, we'll probably talk about how we met and the random happenstance that was that evening at a live podcast recording. And now all of a sudden I have a friend. So we'll talk about that over there. So if you want to check that out, you can head on over to patreon.com/isthisadulting and sign up at the $5 level or more, and you'll receive our bonus content twice a month. And some of you are going, twice a month? Has it only been once a month lately? Yes, but I'm back on the train. I'm getting my stuff together, y'all. I'm pulling it together. I went for a run like 2 days in a row now, so it's coming together. Life's leveling out. So we're going to head over to Patreon and continue this conversation, but thanks for listening, best friends, and we'll see you on Thursday.
Bye, everyone.